Welcome, everyone. We're so happy that you are here spending your Saturday with us to focus on the importance of self-care. I am happy to present on behalf of Citrus Health Network's Early Childhood Development Program on self-care and how it impacts early learning teachers and their relationships with children through our presentation titled, You Can't Pour from an Empty Cup. Today, we're going to be talking about things like what is stress and thinking about stress in the context of what's called the stress curve. We're also going to be talking about different types of stress, including toxic stress, as well as its negative impacts and how it could lead to burnout and how it could affect your relationship with the children in your care. We're going to introduce and explore the concept of co-regulation as an important tool for early learning and how stress impacts co-regulation capacity. And then we're going to end our presentation spending some time thinking about strategies to promote your well-being. Some of those strategies are going to be similar to the ones that we heard this morning from our excellent presenters, our keynote speakers. So hopefully your kind of juices are already flowing with this idea of things that we could do to promote well-being. And I will be your facilitator. My name is Dr. Alexandra Alfonso. Let me go here and then I'll go back. So I am a licensed psychologist. I am an expert in infant and early childhood, which we consider to be birth through age 5. I am endorsed through the Florida Association of Infant Mental Health as an infant mental health clinical mentor, which means that not only am I a clinician, but I'm also a supervisor, and I provide supervision, clinical, administrative, as well as reflective supervision to other clinicians, as well as early intervention specialists. I also provide reflective supervision to teachers and early learning providers and things like that. I have a specialization also in perinatal mental health, which is the time between pregnancy and the postpartum period for families. And I am a certified trainer on the 0 to 3 or through 0 to 3 on the DC 0 to 5, as well as the Growing Brain curriculum, which is a really awesome curriculum that was made for early learning providers. And it focuses on brain science and what we know about the brain and how important early experiences are. And if you get a chance to be trained on the growing brain, I think that the Professional Development Institute offers these types of trainings and things like that. I would highly recommend participating because it's just so helpful to have that knowledge. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm the clinical supervisor at the Citrus Health Network's Early Childhood Department. We're a department in Citrus. So Citrus is humongous and has a lot of different things. But in our early childhood department, we focus on serving children and families birth through 5. Like I said, I'm the clinical supervisor and I oversee not only our clinical program, but also our developmental screening and follow-up program. And I put 2 little stars next to that because that is why we're here presenting to you. Through our developmental screening program, we are lucky to be connected with the folks at the Professional Development Institute. We do lots of training through there, and we got invited to present at the Self-Care Saturday. So we're so happy to be invited here today. The Developmental Screening and Follow-Up Program is a program that supports early learning centers across Miami-Dade County to follow up on children that have been flagged in developmental screeners, such as the ASQ or the ASQSE. We have a team of early intervention specialists that have different backgrounds, such as speech therapy, occupational therapy, psychology, things like that. And they go respond to those flag screeners. They talk to parents and teachers and conduct child observations and implement plans and send out referrals and try to get kids connected to services so that they are ready to start kindergarten. We call it sometimes a school readiness program. So this is our number here at the bottom. If you want to take a picture of this slide, or if you want to write down our number, if you want to contact us to learn more about who we are or how we could connect or support each other, I would be more than happy to chat with you all about that. And I know that we're in a webinar format. Let me open up my chat on the side so I could kind of keep track of that. But I know that Anna and those folks will help me to keep track of anything that comes in through the chat. And you could also use the Q&A. So if you have any questions or comments, please, we want to hear from you. So please drop those into the chat or through the Q&A, and they will let me know that those are coming in so that I could address them. Okay. So like I said, we're going to focus today. Our topic is you can't pour from an empty cup. And where I want us to start today is with a poem. That it's a poem from written from an early learning teacher. Okay. And this is what the poem says. Our early childhood program opens at 6 a.m. and closes at 6 p.m. One day, everything went wrong. A child tried to put a shoe down the toilet. The keys to the kitchen were lost. The milk was sour. The sprinklers went off while the children were playing on the lawn, and there weren't enough dry clothes for everyone. It was just a rotten day. One mother called and said she would be late. So the teacher who usually closed was ill, so another teacher had to stay. It had been a 12-hour day, and she was tired. She held the child in her lap in a rocking chair to wait. When the mother finally arrived, she looked at the teacher and said, "Oh, what I wouldn't give for a job like yours, where I could sit all day and rock." So the goal of us starting with this poem, and maybe what I'll ask you guys, and I'll look at the chat, and I know some people are just joining, but for those of you that were able to hear the poem, what are some reactions that come up for you all after kind of hearing it? And I'm looking at the chat. That's why I'm looking to the side. I have two screens and my chat is on this other side. So and I love that you guys could put the little reacting emojis as well. What comes up for you all as I'm reading this poem? Frustration. Tina says frustration. The mother is delusional. So it's this idea that people don't really understand all that it takes to do the work that you all do, right? Sometimes we think it's just playing with kids and it's this just relaxing kind of activity, and it's not, because you all have so much to do. Robin says, "What a joke. Take my place for a day and you'll beg for your old job." Not, Cyrus says, "Not valuing the importance of the childcare worker and her professionalism. They don't understand the work we do, and maybe she doesn't have a child." Yeah, so it's this idea that you guys do so much, and sometimes that's underappreciated. Sometimes we don't truly understand, or parents don't truly understand, or other people don't really understand all it takes, because we're like, oh, they're little cute babies. They're just playing all day. And no, it's so much more. When we look into the research literature about sources of stress for early childhood teachers, this is what comes up. So things that stress out early childhood teachers are things like having to maintain the early childhood philosophy and practice, so learning a new curriculum or being assessed sometimes by a specific curriculum, or having to understand the philosophy and implement those practices could add some stress. Different time pressures to get everything done, all the things that need to get done during the day, and managing your time and things like that. Things related to non-teaching tasks. So all the other things that teachers do when they're not in front of students. So prepping the class, cleaning up after, planning, and all the things, the extra things that we do to get ourselves ready. managing the needs of children. Typically in early learning, it's the first time some kids have ever been in school, right? So that transition could be really tricky for them. Also, it's oftentimes you guys are seeing kids first before they've been some kids that may need to be identified and need to be further assessed or be placed in other types of supportive classrooms and things like that. You guys may be the first ones seeing these kids because you're working with them so early on. So you may have a classroom with children with all different types of needs, and that could be pretty stressful. Also, managing your personal needs, the things that you have going on in your personal life, and balancing that with the roles of your job. Dealing with parents of children are often something that some teachers tell us is stressful, and managing interpersonal relationships. So the relationships between you and maybe your co-teacher or you and other center staff or leadership or things like that sometimes could also be stressful. So what's missing off this list? What are other things that stress you all out that have not been captured in this list? And I see people are kind of continuing to use the chat, which I really appreciate. Beatrice says they don't appreciate teachers. They think it's just babysitting. I love to say early learning teachers are brain builders, not babysitters, right? But yeah, this idea of babysitting. Yeah, so Paul Zane says lesson plans, developing lesson plans is something that could take time and add stress. All right, I'm going to keep going, but if you guys have other things to add, please do that. I'm looking at the chat. So early learning teachers have stress, right? And not all stress is bad, right? So sometimes when we hear the word stress, we think stress is bad. And that's not true. It depends how much stress we have and if we're able to have a break from stress. And that is what determines the impact of stress on our well-being, right? So this is a graphic that represents what's called the stress curve, okay? And in the stress curve, we have these two axes. We have the one that is horizontal, it's this way. And you see that at the end of that little arrow, it says stress level. So if we think of the horizontal axes as the level of stress, starting from very little all the way to way too much. And then on the vertical axes, we have what's called performance, which means at the very bottom, we're not performing at all. And at the very top is we're performing optimally, like to the very, very best. We see that stress takes on a curve. And what that means is when there's a little bit of stress, when stress is too little, our performance is very little as well. And sometimes that's awesome, right? When we are on vacation, when I am sitting on a beach on vacation, I have very little stress. And that's a good thing. I'm laid back. I'm inactive. I don't really want to do much. I don't want to check emails. I don't want to be thinking about work because I'm on vacation and I have very little motivation to do anything, right? So when our stress level is very, very low, it impacts our performance and our motivation to perform. And we may not be motivated to perform and we may not be performing. And it may be 100% appropriate given the context. Like I said, if I'm on vacation, I want to have a little bit of stress. I want to be laid back and I want to be just resting. And we do need times to rest. So a little bit of stress, a little bit of performance or no performance. Then we get, and that's this blue area that we're seeing on the stress curve. Then we enter as stress increases a little bit past too little, we get to the sweet spot. We get to the green area. We get to the area of what's called optimum stress. At optimum stress, we notice that the curve kind of goes up, 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 up in performance, which means when we're in the green, we are performing at our optimal level, right? In other words, if I am, let's say I'm studying for a test, or I know that I'm going to take a test, and I get a little stressed by that. I want to do well on the test. I want to be prepared. I want to arrive on time. I want to make sure that I know what I'm doing. That little oomph of stress is going to get me, it's going to motivate me to study. It's going to motivate me to turn on my alarm. It's going to motivate me to have a healthy breakfast. It's going to motivate me to get to where I need on time with the materials that I need to do what I need to do to take this test, because I do need that little bit of stress to get me to kind of care and to get me motivated to perform. If I had too little stress and I really didn't care about this test, I may not study, I may not care what time I get there, right? So that's going to be too laid back, and it's not going to help me in this opportunity where I actually do need to have some stress, right? But if I have too much stress, then that's not going to help me either, right? So it's all about finding a balance. And there is this balance, this sweet spot, like I mentioned, of optimum stress, that it just gets us going. It keeps us motivated. It keeps us focused. It keeps us being able to move toward our goals and aligning with our intentions of how we show up and what we need and our responsibilities and things like that. So when we're working and when we're moving through life, when we're not on vacation, but we're actually getting stuff done, we do want to have that optimum level of stress living within us. Okay. So that's the sweet spot. Then we get into yellow, and you see how that curve starts kind of dipping down, because when we have too much stress, we start to feel overloaded, right? Now we've kind of moved from optimal stress, and now we're in this kind of overloaded state, and we start to experience exhaustion. And when we don't have a break from stress, and stress keeps going and going and building, we start to see our performance dip as well. And we get into a state of what's called burnout. We get into the red zone. We could have symptoms like anxiety, panic, anger. We could have a breakdown. We're just over it, and our performance also suffers, just like it kind of suffered in the very beginning, except in the very beginning, our stress is low and we have no performance. Now our stress is very high and actually causing some really kind of toxic things within our body. Okay. So the point of this is not all stress is bad. There is an optimal level of stress that we do want to achieve and stay within in order to be effective and efficient in the work that we do, especially when it's performance-based. Okay. The other thing I want to tell you all about this is that some people, because of the experiences that they've had early on in life or during adolescence or during adulthood or are currently experiencing, some people may be more vulnerable to the effects of stress than others, right? So things like the adverse childhood experiences, things like experiencing abuse, whether that's physical, emotional, sexual, experiencing neglect, physical or emotional, living in a household where people have severe mental illness, where people have been incarcerated, where people have been divorced, where people have experienced intimate partner violence, where people have had difficulty with substance misuse and things like that. Those could make you more vulnerable to stress in the here and now, because it is likely that your nervous system and your brain has been kind of flooded by toxic stress for a long time. So it could be the case that your brain kind of comes to expect that the world is dangerous and stressful, and it may be more sensitive to flooding your system with toxic stress. Other things like living in an under-resourced or violent neighborhood, experiencing racism, those things that are happening kind of all around us that we don't have control over also floods our system with stress and can have a negative impact on our well-being. So I want us to think about this idea of what we call a window of tolerance. So if I imagine a window or a box, any experience that falls within my window of tolerance are things that I could tolerate. I'm okay dealing with. When things fall outside of my window of tolerance, that's when I have trouble dealing with them because they're too stressful for me. Well, everybody's window of tolerance is a different size, we could say. And on certain days, our window of tolerance may be smaller than others. Like, let's say if last night I didn't sleep well, maybe my child spent all night sick and I had to be up with them. Then I get in I wake up in the morning and my dog vomited in the living room. And then I get in my car and I almost get into an accident. And I'm really late for this staff meeting. And I'm scrambling to get through the door. So I forget to have breakfast. So that day just sounds like a rotten day. And maybe just for that day or for the morning part of that day, my window of tolerance is pretty low, which means that any little thing that happens might really set me off, right? Things that maybe normally wouldn't. They set me off today because that window of tolerance has narrowed because of all the stressful experiences that I have had that day. Well, similarly, when people have had stressful childhood or adolescent or adult experiences, that could also impact their window of tolerance, and things could really feel pretty stressful. So I'm telling you all this because you all are the experts on yourselves. And if you have had difficult, scary, or stressful experiences, which a lot of people have, it's even extra important to understand the role that stress plays in your life and how your body, emotions, and behavior are impacted when you are stressed. And it even makes the case more for you of how important it is to take care of yourself and to engage in self-care and self-compassion practices. Okay, so some people are just more vulnerable to the effects of stress because of the things that they've lived or the things that they're currently living. Okay. I'm kind of looking at the chat. I don't see anything new. Um, So like our stress curve showed, when we have so much stress, and we're calling that toxic stress because it literally is toxic to our nervous system, to our body. When we feel stress, we have a hormone that floods our system. And that hormone in little quantities is okay, right? It kind of bursts and leaves, that's okay. But when stress stays into our system, when it flows in our system and there's no escape, or it's just constant, it's constant, then that actually becomes toxic to our body. We're not meant to have stress hormones lingering for so long. So it does become toxic and could impact not only our emotions and our minds, but it could also impact our health. It could also impact our health. Okay. So when this happens for a very, very long time, it could lead to something that we refer to as burnout. And burnout is the psychosocial emotional fatigue and disillusionment from a job. So we're talking about work burnout here. And it results in feeling cynical, overworked, or overstressed, right? So when we are feeling burnt out, we're feeling extreme exhaustion. Maybe we don't even want to go to work. Going to work is like a drag. It's hard to get out of bed. I don't really want to do anything extra for work, like go to a work-related event. Maybe I find myself constantly complaining, kind of over focusing on the negative. I find myself maybe irritable. I'm quick to anger. Maybe I'm overeating, or I feel like I'm not hungry at all. I'm maybe sleeping too much or not sleeping enough. Maybe I have some physical symptoms like I'm getting headaches or stomach aches or chest pain or back pain or tingling in my hands. And people also describe this idea of a foggy brain where I'm having trouble making decisions. I'm having trouble seeing things clearly. I'm kind of in a fog. And those are really important signs to pay attention to because that means that the system, the nervous system, your body requires rest and recuperation, and could really also be the sign that you need to do whatever you need to do for yourself, and that looks differently for people, to kind of get yourself back to the state of balance and calm, because at this point your kind of body, mind, and nervous system are kind of out of whack, right? They're out of balance. So when we see someone, and even instead of seeing someone, when we notice in ourselves kind of this, when we're very stressed, it happens to everyone, we get negative, right? We focus on the negative, we get negative. And if you're constantly in that state where everything bothers you, you feel like you're constantly complaining, you feel like you're angry, and that's just kind of your everyday, then it is time to kind of be curious and to understand the level of stress in your life and how you may be feeling about that and how you could take steps toward wellness, right? Because this is going to really, like I said, not only is it uncomfortable to live this way, over time, it could really research has shown that toxic stress could actually lead to poor health outcomes. So people that have more stress are more likely to have like heart attack, diabetes, like stroke, be overweight, engage in negative habits such as like the use of substances or smoking cigarettes or engaging in high risk behaviors, like spending money, or just it leads to more problems and bigger long-term problems. So it is something to be on the lookout for, and know that there is help if you are feeling that way. Okay, so this is pretty serious, is what I'm trying to say. And this is not just having one bad day. We all have bad, hard, difficult moments or days. This is if we're kind of feeling like this is our new normal and it doesn't feel great, you know? The other thing toxic stress can do, and I want to spend some time talking about that with you all now, is that toxic stress can also negatively impact your relationship with children and your ability to show up for them and care for them in the way that they need, right? You all have such an important job because these little kids really depend on you. And some of these kiddos spend lots and lots of time with you. Sometimes teachers tell me, a child spends more time in my center than with their parents because they're getting dropped off at 6 a.m., they're getting picked up at 6 p.m., they're coming Monday through Friday, and I feel like we're their second home. And yeah, sometimes that is the case. And that's why we call early learning caregivers or early learning professionals, we call them caregivers, right? Because you guys are a caregiver and you are spending so much time with these little kiddos, and they need so much from us, not only physical safety, but they also need emotional safety from us. And we can't pour from an empty cup, right? That's the title of our presentation. So when we are very stressed, it's going to negatively impact how we could show up for children. When teachers and anyone, this is not a teacher thing, this is an anyone thing, right? Any caregiver, any teacher that is experiencing chronic toxic stress without a break, you're going to show up as less nurturing and less responsive to the needs of children. We're just not able to give them our very best because, like the title, right? We can't pour from an empty cup. If my cup is empty, how can I serve to you what you need? I don't have it right now in me. How can I give you that? I don't have it. Nobody has filled my cup. How can I fill your cup, right? So I could show up as less nurturing, less sensitive to the needs and cues of children. Teachers have more negative interactions with children. There's more yelling. There's more just negativity. Research has shown that this is not a teacher thing. Adults, caregivers, teachers, when we're super duper stressed, we're more likely to see a child's behavior as more severe, right? Like, I can't deal with this. This is too much. I need the kid out of my classroom. You have less creativity to problem solve. You have less patience to problem solve. This is not a teacher thing. This is a human stress response thing. We have less access to big picture thinking, to creativity, to problem solving, to patience, to nurturing and responsiveness when we are running on empty. And that will negatively impact, or can negatively impact, how we show up for children, you know? So that is important to know. I want to give you guys a little bit of information about how this all works in the brain, right? Because it's really exciting to be up to date with brain research, because maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago, these are things that we knew to be true, but we couldn't really pinpoint it with science. Now, there's been so much advancements in scientific brain research that we're like, there's science behind everything that we knew to be true. So that's so exciting. So the brain is a very complex and social organ, right? The brain is a social organ, which means that it needs experiences and relationships with other people to grow and to learn from the environment. And it's a pretty complex organ, like I said. So Dr. Dan Siegel, who's a psychiatrist, proposed a way of thinking about the brain that really simplifies it and helps us to really understand not only the different parts of the brain, but how the stress response works and impacts the brain. So that's what I want to go over with you all right now. Okay, so you see this hand, and I will also use my hands, and I'm glad that my background won't mess it up too much. But if we think that this is our brain, so this part right here is our spinal cord, okay? And then this part right here in my hand is what's called the brain stem. Okay, that sits right on top of the spinal cord. And this is kind of my lower brain, right? What we could also call our survival brain, or we could call it our reptilian brain or our animal brain. It's the part of the brain that is primitive. It's the part of the brain that we kind of share with animals, and it's the part of the brain that develops first. When babies are born, this part of the brain is already developed because it allows us to do automatic things like breathe and swallow and suck when we're sucking on like milk or the breast or things like that. The lower kind of functioning, or the lower parts of our brain, also allow us to babies, from the time they're born, they could cry. Most babies are able to cry. They're able to show us when they're uncomfortable, when they're too cold, when they're too hot, when they're too hungry, when they're too wet, things like that. So that part of the brain is the part of the brain that's kind of on the lower half of our hand. And then we have our thumb, and our thumb is our amygdala, or our alarm center, right? This thumb, this amygdala, its sole purpose is to signal to us when there's danger in our environment, okay? And then we have these four fingers, which we could refer to them as the forebrain, right? So four fingers, forebrain, or we could also call it the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex in a mature brain, right, in a brain of an adult, hugs, right? It kind of hugs the amygdala and the lower brain, and it helps to organize big emotions and experiences, right? So if I'm in my house and I hear a big sound and my amygdala starts going up, notice what happened when my amygdala raised is that boom, what Dan Siegel refers to as my lid got flipped, right? So my thinking brain, so we could say, this is my feeling brain, this is my thinking brain, and this is what helps me to kind of make sense of danger, right? So when I sense danger, my thinking brain, whoop, it goes offline, because when I'm sensing danger, I just need to react. I don't need to think so much, right? I need to start, when our amygdala senses danger, we start to be flooded with stress hormones. Our heart starts beating fast. We start to either fight, flight, or freeze. We start to get ready. Our body starts to get ready to do what it needs to do to keep us safe, right? So if I am at home resting and I hear a loud sound, my amygdala is going off, and maybe I start to feel a little worried, but then I'm an adult and maybe I tell myself, Alex, just relax. Let's take a look outside. Oh, there's nothing out there. Oh, it was a raccoon, or I don't know, it was something moving around and it sounded scary, but it's not. You're actually safe. If things were really dangerous, your alarm would go off, and you live in a safe neighborhood, and okay, I'm talking myself down. You notice how I'm getting that thinking brain online, and I'm really kind of getting to where I need to be to come back to a place of calm. I'm able to self-regulate. I'm able to do that for myself with language and things like that to get my thinking brain back online. Let's say it's the same example. I'm still an adult. My amygdala goes crazy and I'm not able to do that for myself. Maybe I call someone, or I call my husband to come in to the other room, or I call my friend on the phone and I say, I'm really, really worried. What's going on? Well, maybe that person will help tell me some nice, calm things, and that person will help to get my thinking brain back online, right? They'll be like, it's okay. Don't worry. Do you want me to come over? I could think through this with you. So now I got my thinking brain back on, right? So we could achieve a state of regulation or calm either by ourselves if we're old enough, or in the context of what's called co-regulation. I'll introduce that in a second, but I just gave you an example of co-regulation. Was if I ask someone to help me do that. If I call my friend, if I call my husband, if I call someone to help me talk through things and help get my thinking brain back online, that is a co-regulation experience. And we all benefit from those. Not only little kids benefit from co-regulation, we all do, because human beings are social creatures that need each other, and we need and thrive in relationships. So we all have those people that we know we could call, hopefully, in those moments of stress. And we may have lists of people that we know we wouldn't call in the moments of stress because they may stress us out more, or we feel like they just wouldn't understand. They wouldn't serve a co-regulation function. So maybe we wouldn't call them, but we have the people that we would kind of lean toward or go to because those people would help us to regulate. Okay. So that is kind of the hand model of the brain. The other thing I want to say about that is that this stress response system is something that all humans are born with. We have access to, and it's based on what I like to call old programming, right? So this was really developed to keep us safe, and it keeps us safe, but it was really made to be so sensitive to keep us safe long time ago when we were living in jungles or forest or things like that. And it was likely that a bear or a tiger or someone would run toward us, and we were faced with real life danger. So if like I said, with the thinking brain, we have access to big picture thinking, to creativity, to anticipating consequences, to thinking about long-term consequences and problem solving and all those wonderful things. When we're living in a flipped lid state, when our lid is flipped and we're living in our emotional brain, all we have access to do is to fight, right? Is to flight, which means I need to run away, or to freeze. I need to freeze. And the reason why we freeze is because some animals do that, right? Like when a lion is chasing a gazelle, sometimes the gazelle will kind of play dead, or like the raccoons or the possums, I guess, are the best example. They'll play dead, they'll freeze, and hopefully feel like that will reduce their risk of something happening. So sometimes we'll freeze and we don't know what to do. Everybody kind of reacts differently. But if I did have a bear running toward me, I don't need to have big picture thinking. I don't need to be creative, right? I need to survive, right? I need to find a tree and maybe run up it, or I need to find a weapon and head toward this bear. I need to survive. So that's why the thinking brain goes offline, because, and let me backtrack, we only have X amount, let's say, of mental energy to work with. So if all my mental energy, and when we hook up people's brains, what that looks like is blood flow, where my blood is flowing in my brain. So if I hook up my brain and I'm in this training right now, all calm, cozy in my house, listening to this on a Saturday, I'm going to notice that I have a lot of activity or blood flow here in my forebrain, right? Because I'm safe. When we're safe, we're open to learning, we're thinking, we're integrating concepts, and we're here together, feeling safe and okay and open to learning, right? That is taking up all my mental energy. If a bear walks into the room right now, I need mental energy to not be doing that. I need it to be surviving. So then my blood flow leaves, all my energy, leaves here and goes into my reptilian brain, and then goes into my system too, to make me strong, to make me be able to run or do what I need to do to kind of be safe and okay, right? So the blood leaves my brain, my frontal cortex, and goes into other systems of my body to keep me alive. This is an adaptive response, which means that it's something that was done to keep us safe and okay. But what happens is that now we're living in modern society. We don't have bears and tigers running through the street. We have annoying things like traffic, or loud sounds, maybe in a city, or smells, or just other things, people talking loud on a cell phone, or just other annoyances or other things that sometimes our amygdala perceives as unsafe when it's really just uncomfortable or annoying, right? That doesn't mean that it's unsafe. But our brains don't know the difference between annoying, uncomfortable, and unsafe. So we could be responding, right? Like I'll give an example of, if I'm a caregiver and I'm with a couple of kids and they're all crying and they're just like, or whining, and it's just a constant sound over and over and over and over again. I may be completely safe. I'm safe and okay, but oh boy, is that rough to listen to constantly. So my amygdala might actually be like, unsafe, danger, danger, danger. And we may get angry or annoyed or overwhelmed or overstimulated or shut down, or anything like that, because we're living in a flipped lid. It's a flipped lid moment. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. If you guys have questions, I know it's kind of the brain is complicated, but I do want to give you guys that information because it does help to understand and I love to incorporate that. Like, was this a flipped lid moment? Where am I right now? Is my lid flipped? And what do I need to do to come back to get that forebrain back online? Okay. So with that being said, we were talking about mature brains kind of being able to do that for themselves or with the help of others. Well, babies and young children, they need a lot of help with taming and navigating big emotions. Their brain, from a maturation standpoint, is just not there yet. It's under construction. Their brains are underdeveloped, and their brain primarily live in the emotion kind of side, right? Especially 0 to 3. At 5 and 6, kids are already starting to be able to do a little bit of this for themselves. They still need a lot of help, you guys, because the bottom line is that our prefrontal cortex doesn't finish developing until age 25. Until age 25. So it takes a long time. And that's why we see adolescents and youth needing they sometimes, a lot of the time, need a lot of help in making decisions and navigating big feelings because they don't have that piece of the brain. They're so much better off than a 3-year-old, but they're still pretty underdeveloped until, like I said, about 25. Now, before we used to say adolescence was until 18. We don't say that anymore. We say adolescence is until 25, which is interesting. And it makes sense, right? So little kids, they are not able to do that for themselves. They need that co-regulation partner to help them through that. And the only way, well, let me say that. So that's what I want to say about this slide is that little kids, just by being little kids, their brains are underdeveloped in the sense their higher order brain is, right? Like a little kid does not have higher order thinking abilities, right? They're really limited, but they live primarily in their emotional brain. And it takes very little to flip their lid, right? Like I wanted the blue cup, you gave me the red cup, my lid is flipped. You gave me a banana and I didn't want you to peel the banana for me, lid is flipped. You took my teddy bear, lid is flipped, right? Like little kids, their lids are constantly being flipped because they hardly even have a lid to begin with, right? Their lid is non-existent to very kind of small. So then little kids need a co-regulation partner to make sense and navigate big emotions. They need us. They need the adults in their life that are bigger, stronger, wiser, kinder, to give them the gift of calm, to give them the gift of returning to balance when something has flipped their lid or when big feelings have taken over. Little kids need adults to help them through those moments. But guess what? If I'm an adult who's experiencing chronic toxic stress, again, my cup is empty. I'm running on empty. I'm going to have a really hard time serving as a co-regulation partner for you because I'm lacking in that in this moment, right? So when we have toxic stress, you can't pour from an empty cup. It's really hard to give those little kids what they need, which is what they need is a co-regulation partner, right? But I can't do that if I don't have, where's my co-regulation partner, right? Who fills my cup? How do I get my cup filled? So like we've been saying, co-regulation helps babies and young children return to calm and to organize big emotions. What co-regulation looks like is a caregiver being calm and emotionally present with a child while they're in the middle of what we could call an emotional storm, right? When big emotions are taking the lead or are in the forefront, having an adult being calm and emotionally present. Co-regulation can be what it looks like is using your voice, the way that you move your body, how you use touch, how you use facial expressions or gestures or the intonation of your voice to provide a safe and supportive, calming environment to kind of bring children back to calm. And research shows that co-regulation is the most effective way to teach children to be able to calm their own nervous system in the future. So I like to give the metaphor of, and I didn't make this up, I saw this somewhere, of a pilot. So imagine we are all on a plane, we're all adults, right? We're all taking a trip and we're all in a plane. And we start to experience some turbulence. And maybe the lights go off and the drop and the oxygen mask comes down, right? If that happens to me and I'm on a plane, I think my lid is going to be flipped. I'm going to be thinking, are we going to be okay? Is something really bad going to happen? I'm so scared. I'm so nervous. I don't know what to do. I'm not in control. I'm so nervous, right? In that moment, if I have the pilot coming on the speaker and saying, oh my gosh, everything is going wrong or something, that person is not being a co-regulation partner, right? But what typically happens in those moments, right? The pilot comes on and says, hey, this is your pilot speaking, right? They're talking very calm. We're experiencing some turbulence, no big deal. Just stay in your seat. We're all okay. Everything's okay. I got you. This is not too scary for me, right? They're not saying those things, but the messages is, what's happening is not too scary for me. What's happening, I could handle. You're going to be safe and okay. I got you. This feels scary. This feels really overwhelming. This feels really chaotic, but don't worry. I got you. This is temporary. We're going to be okay. And I got you. That's co-regulation, right? For kids to feel like nothing is too big for us to handle. We got you, right? So if the pilot goes there, I may still be nervous, but I would be like, okay, I trust him, right? I trust him. And that's the other big part of what I just said. I trust him, right? So we do need to have, if we have really negative interactions with kids, they're not going to reach out to us in those hard moments, or they're not going to trust that we got them in those hard moments, right? Co-regulation is done in the context of safe relationships. So like I said, you may have certain people that you say, I'm not going to call them when I'm stressed because they're going to make it worse, or they just wouldn't understand. They don't get me. They don't understand. Little kids could feel like that too, right? I don't feel like you get me, or I feel like you do get me. You're my safe person, right? So we kind of set those experiences up from the relationship that we have with kids. And if we have a positive relationship, they'll be more open for us to serve as a co-regulation partner for them. Gabby Reyes is saying something. What can you do when the children is screaming and don't want to listen to your techniques to help him? Yeah. So that is, I would love to kind of chat more about that. I think that what I will say is that techniques and problem solving happens here, right? So if we're here, what's going to help is just emotional connection. It's just going to be validation. So sometimes we say connection over correction. Connection over correction. We connect first and then we correct later, right? Because we want to get some sort of thinking brain back online before we start kind of connecting. So a child that may not be listening because their lid is completely flipped, I may narrate. So let's say, I'm just going to make this up. Let's say a little boy was playing with a fire truck and another kid took the fire truck, and that kid, then his lid completely flipped and he's throwing himself on the floor. He's screaming so loud. He is doing all of these things and he can't even really hear me. I would probably want to write connection over correction. I have to first connect with the emotional brain to then get that thinking brain back online. I need to fill the cup of the emotional brain to kind of get back online. So I may just say things like, he took your truck and you love that truck. I know how much you love that red truck. You love that red truck and he took it and you're mad, right? Because if I'm doing it right, then little kids go like this. Yeah, right? Now I got him. Now you're listening. But if I start with, we got to share and sharing is caring and that he's not ready to hear that. Yeah, Robin, exactly. Validating those feelings. And sometimes we feel like we're encouraging it, but we're not. We're giving him an organizing experience. We're giving him words because that's what we do, right? When we have adults have fully developed language and something happens, we talk to ourselves. It's okay, Alex, this happened and that was uncomfortable, but you know what? And we talk to ourselves. Little kids can't do that when they don't have enough language from a maturation point, or if they're delayed in language or whatever. But really, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, they can't talk to themselves in such a sophisticated way, right? So we need to be those words for them. I always say, like my daughter, I always tell her, it's okay. And I tell her other things. And now I notice when she plays, she's 2.5, she'll do something. And then she tells herself, she goes, it's okay, right? She's internalizing the things she's heard me say to her, right? Just like it's for better or for worse. I've worked with kids that they've had other experiences when mistakes happen, and they'll say those things out loud. So they'll make a mistake and they'll be like, oh, you messed up, right? And I'm like, oh, I know that that's what adults have told them, right? So what we tell adults, what we tell children, the words that we tell children becomes their inner monologue, right? So we really do want to validate those emotions. We want to connect emotional brain to emotional brain to get that thinking brain online a little bit. And once the storm has passed, now we could have some more conversations about what could happen next time. How do you think that made your friend feel? And all of that stuff. But we do want to start from a place of connection to get kids to feel like we really understand. Because even for us, it's not a big deal to take a fire truck maybe, but it would be a big deal if you took my real car. If you took my real car and you didn't tell me, that would be a big problem, right? Or if you kicked me out of the passenger seat. So little kids, little problems, big people, big problems, but it still kind of translates to them. It is a big deal that somebody took their fire truck. So it's not helpful if we're like, that's not a big deal. There's another one there. Like, no, we're right there. We're trying to use logic and thinking brain to an emotional brain. We're not going to get anywhere. We have to use emotional to emotional. So we have to say things like, oh, that was hard. You know, you had plans for that truck. You had big plans and he just took it from your hands and that made you mad. You know, things like that. Because like I said, then kids say, uh-huh, yeah. And then we could say, okay, and it's okay to be mad, but we don't hurt our friends when we're mad. We do these other things, right? Now I have the brain online and now I'm able to talk. Easier said than done, you guys. I know it's beautiful when I say it here, but it's really hard to put into practice. So I don't want to minimize how difficult it is, because oftentimes what it looks like in the classroom is multiple kids having different needs and you having to serve potentially as a co-regulation partner to more than one kid at once or at different times to different kids. So it could look really tricky when we're talking about caring for lots of kids that have different needs at any given time. Okay. I love this quote. This is a very big infant mental health quote. It's by Jerry Paul, and he says, how you are is as important as what you do. So it's not about the things you do. The things you do is the curriculum. I did the curriculum, or I said the thing that they told me in the training, and I said it this way, and I did all the things in the class assessment, and I did all the things. I did the things. That's important. It's very important to do the things and to do them well and with fidelity and things like that. But how you are, how you show up, the way you are and the energy and how you show up for kids, how you show up for yourself, how you show up every day is just as important. Because if I'm implementing a beautiful curriculum, let's say I'm implementing a conscious discipline curriculum, but I'm doing it without nurturance, without openness, without love, it's not going to land. How you are is as important as what you do. And how you are is impacted by your wellness. So that's why we can't pour from an empty cup. When our cup is empty, it's going to impact how we are. And that's going to impact the way we show up for kids. Robin says you can teach them some self-regulation breathing, blowing off the hot pizza as a breathing exercises that kids like because it involves pizza. You make your hand like you're holding a slice of pizza, have them inhale deeply, then slowly blow on the hand to cool off the pizza. Yes, exactly. And what I recommend is that these types of breathing exercises, so they have the pizza, they have the flour is pretty similar. Imagine you're holding a flour, you're smelling it and then blowing off the petals. Or a soup. I'm holding a soup. I love the pizza one. There's another one called starfish breathing, where we have kids hold a hand like this 5, and they have to follow with their finger and inhale as they trace their finger. So inhale and then exhale and then inhale. And it'll get them to do 5 breaths. So we could have things like that. Teach that to kids in circle time. Teach it to kids when they're calm. In the moment of a big meltdown, of a big emotional storm, brains are not open for learning. That's not the time to teach. That may be the time to prompt. Remember the pizza? We bring out the pizza, right? And when in doubt, if words are not happening, we could just model that. That's co-regulation as well. I'm just sitting next to you and I'm breathing deeply. This is tough. This is really tricky. And I'm breathing and hoping that you will imitate me and we'll get through this storm together. And like I said, later when the storm has passed, we could think about what might help us remember. Maybe it's a picture of a pizza to remember for you to breathe. Maybe it's somewhere in the classroom where I have those pictures or I have a cozy corner. I'm able to kind of prompt you, but teach that when kids are calm. Don't try to teach when nobody could learn like this, right? When we are stressed, we're not open for learning. Yeah, exactly. So this is called starfish breathing. It sounds like you guys know a lot of different techniques. I love to hear what teachers are already doing because you guys are in the front lines. You guys are doing this every single day. So it is lovely to have things that are woven in to just, this is how we do things. This is how we function as a class. And these are the tools. Sometimes we have kids make coping toolboxes. What's in our coping toolbox? A little thing I could squeeze, a reminder to do my pizza breathing, maybe a crayon and a paper so that I could draw, maybe some papers that I could rip. Like, what is it that I need to cope in those difficult moments? But the biggest thing is it's not a moment to teach new things. It's a moment to either model or prompt kids to do things that they are already very familiar with. Because in that moment, brains are not ready for learning. And the most important thing that we want to do before we start anything else is validate, because we want to bring that kid, we want him, when we are like this, we are disconnected from others. Nobody gets me. Nobody understands. I'm in this alone. That's a very flip lid way of thinking. We want to get kids, their brains back online by helping them to feel understood and connected. And we do that by validating their experiences. We could always validate feelings and set limits on behavior. I could say, you got really mad because he took your favorite fire truck and you had big plans for that fire truck. You were mad. You got so mad. It's okay to be mad. I get it. I would be mad too. We don't use our hands to hurt our friends. That's a behavior. So I could validate a lot of feeling, and I could at the same exact time set a limit on behaviors. I won't let you hit. I keep our friends safe in this class. I won't let you hit, right? I'm going to block this. I'm going to stand in front of our friends because I won't let this class be unsafe. I won't let you hit. That's not the same thing as me saying, you can't be mad. This is nothing to be mad about. You're overreacting. You're being silly. You're a big kid. Stop doing that. That's a different message. So I could do both, and we should do both. Validate feelings while setting strict, firm limits on behavior. Okay. So this is where Anna's going to help me play our first video. But this is a nice graphic that I like to show because it shows how co-regulation experiences, so doing these things with children over time, gives children helps children take the correct path and steps toward being able to do this on their own. So Anna, I'm going to stop sharing.
You tell me. Yep, you stop sharing and I'll start sharing. Okay. This is the short video, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Are you seeing the black screen?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Can you hear it?
No, the audio is not playing.
Okay, so Pamela, okay, hang on 1 second. Let me get this right.
No problem.
Go here.
Okay.
You don't have to.
Okay.
More. Yeah. Share sound.
Okay, here we go, guys.
We don't want to put your hands on him. That hurts when you put your hands on my friends.
I don't like it.
You're right. You don't like it. You tell her. Emily, did you hear his words?
I like it.
Yeah, and she didn't like it when you put your hands on her.
Okay, so we're gonna play it again because it is a short video. So before we play it again, what I want you guys to be paying attention to, I know, I think it's so cute too, is how this teacher's showing up. So let's think about what she's doing, but let's also think about how she's doing it, okay? Let's watch it again. And let's also see who all is involved in this picture as well. Okay.
We don't
Thank you,
want to
Anna.
put your hands on him. That hurts when you put your hands on my friends.
I don't like it.
You're right. You don't like it. You tell her. Emily, did you hear his words?
I like it.
Yeah, and she didn't like it when you put your hands on her.
Okay. So yeah, I think it's so cute. Let me open up my chat on this side before I share my presentation again. What did you all notice in this video? She's problem solving. How is she showing up for these kiddos? Is she regulated herself, or is her lid flipped in this moment? Acknowledging she was managing both kids, which is tricky. She's calm. Yeah, she's calm. She's at their level, right? She's low. She's at their level. She was attending to both sides, which is tricky, right? I'm having to kind of deal with multiple things that are happening. She's setting limits. She didn't overreact, right? Some big things were happening and she was not overreacting. She was speaking using developmentally appropriate language. She was also using her intonation to convey, like when he was like, I don't like, she's like, yeah, you don't like that, right? She was kind of giving it importance while still being calm and really regulated. I don't know if you guys picked up on it, but at some point the little boy went to hit and she blocked it. She was going to take any steps necessary to keep safety as a priority while at the same time providing an experience that was organizing, right? Something happened between these two kids, and little kids are not able to organize big social experiences or big stressful experiences. So she was there to help them organize. You didn't like that. Tell them, I didn't like that. And you didn't like that either. All right, let's make sure everybody's on the same page. Did you guys notice there was a third person? There was a little girl in a pink shirt also watching. She wasn't part of the conundrum, but she was part of the classroom and she was watching. So these types of examples not only help to organize the experience. Yeah, Maribel, she wasn't choosing any sides. She was just really holding space to organize this experience. She didn't have a conclusion and now you have to say sorry and hug. She was just organizing something that had already happened. She was keeping the climate in her classroom safe. And that is one of our roles, to be like, this, I won't allow unsafe things to happen on my watch, right? I'm here to keep everyone safe and okay. So I wanted to point out the little girl looking with the pink shirt, kind of peeking in. Anna, maybe we'll just show it one more time so those that didn't see the little girl can see her.
Okay, hang on one second. Let me grab it again.
Thank you so much.
Oh no,
teamwork.
Hey. Yeah. Oh goodness, I just want to get it to 0. Okay, that is so hard to get it to start. Okay, good. Okay, I'm sharing.
Thank you.
Okay, Pamela guided me before. You know what happens is
Anna,
when
you should share your screen again.
Yeah, and now share sound is clicked, and now we
Mhm.
should be okay. Okay, here we go. Okay. Let's start it. Okay, here we go. Goodness.
We don't want to put your hands on him. That hurts when you put your hands on my friends.
I don't like it.
You're right. You don't like it. You tell her. Emily, did you hear his words?
I like it.
Yeah, and she didn't like it when you put your hands on her.
Yeah, so there was a third little girl watching. taking it all in, being able to learn from those experiences herself. And then I just noticed that the teacher had some type of mop or something in her hand. So she might have been doing something else in the moment, or maybe using that to keep some, I don't know what that was about, but she, even though she was, let's imagine she was cleaning vomit or something on the other side of the classroom, she had to kind of stop what she was doing and do what the moment called for, which was to provide an organizing experience for two of the children in her care, and giving them the template for problem solving on their own, right? Or maybe, yeah, maybe it was all about the mom. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, the teacher was being a leader in that moment. She wasn't being permissive. And at this, because sometimes people are confused by like, well, if I validate feelings, doesn't that mean that then I let kids do whatever? And doesn't that mean that then I'm not an authority? So this teacher was very much living in her authority. She was, firm. There was nothing dangerous was going to happen while she was on the clock, right? She was there to keep things safe while at the same time being nurturing. That is such a beautiful place to be in when you're an early learning professional, right? Having firm limits, but at the same time being nurturing. Okay. All right. Yes, classroom management. Sometimes we feel like classroom management needs to be all about being punitive and controlling and things like that. And that's not what it is. Not at all. The better relationship we have with students, the more likely they will to behave well in our presence. We also don't want to be overly permissive. That will cause problems too. We want to find the nice balance of setting limits on behaviors, reinforcing and praising appropriate behaviors, and always validating emotions. We can never spoil a kid by validating emotions. We could spoil a kid by being very overly permissive and not setting limits on behaviors. Behaviors and emotions are different, and we need to understand that. So like I have been saying, co-regulation experiences will give children the template to be able to do this for themselves one day. Okay. I'll say two things. So from a brain science perspective, what's happening is that every time an adult is giving you this experience, your brain, a little kid's brain right here, is getting stronger, right? And like I said, it's underdeveloped, so it's getting stronger and stronger like a muscle to use that so that they are able to enact this part of their brain in the future when they have to problem solve. From a non-brain science perspective, from a more kind of psychological perspective, it's giving kids the tools, the words to say, the types of things to say when similar situations happen for them in the future. So if this teacher has done this with these kids all year long, I wouldn't be surprised if next year the little kid, let's say, goes to VPK or to another level and something happens and he tells the little girl, stop, I don't like that. I wouldn't be surprised, right? Because his teacher has given him those tools. She's showed him how to speak your truth, how to set limits, how to voice things that you don't like, how to do that while still being safe and not hurting our friends, right? Those are important skills that we want kids to be able to do for themselves. It's going to make them successful. And that's what we see, that self-regulate or emotional regulation is a very, very important skill for kids. This could be a whole presentation in and of itself, so I won't spend too much time here. But emotion regulation has strong ties with positive outcomes, which means when kids could emotionally regulate, things go well for them, right? They have more success socially with friends and with peers, with adults. They have more success emotionally. They're able to understand their emotions better. They're able to express their emotions better. And it even allows them to have academic success. They're able to tolerate frustration. They're able to persist. They're able to ask for help. They're able to trust and lean on other people, right? And all of those things that really help them to be successful in formal schooling and on. Emotion regulation takes a lot of practice. It takes practice in co-regulation moments, and it also requires a level of brain maturation. And here I'm reminding you guys that little kids will continue to need help calming down because the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until age 25. So even our youth, our young adults need our help in thinking through and organizing and navigating big emotions. Some adults are 30 and 40 and 50 and they still can't regulate their emotions, because it doesn't only take brain maturation, it also takes practice, and it takes experiences with a co-regulation partner. And if nobody ever filled your cup consistently, it's going to be really hard for you to know how to do that for yourself. And you may be looking to other things. People look to risky behaviors, substances, other things, right? When they're stressed out, they numb, they avoid, they distract. And we're living in a society of people that are chronically stressed, and a lot of people don't have accurate coping mechanisms to deal with that, right? Because it's been kind of passed down different ways of coping that may not be as helpful. So I think that's something super important, and it's something that you are an expert on your journey. So you will have to do some reflection and thinking back, and really trying to understand how stress shows up in your life, how it shows up in your body, in your mind, in your behaviors, and what are the things that bring you wellness. Because we do want to show up for kids in a way that helps them to build these skills. So then my next point here is what we've been saying all along, which is that your well-being impacts the way you show up for children. And before we watch the second video, I think I saw something in the Q&A. Anna and Pamela, do you guys see something? Did somebody ask a question in the Q&A? I'm happy to answer it now before we move on to the second part of the presentation.
I don't have, in the Q&A, hold on.
No,
No, it's
someone
empty.
was referring that when you said she was firm, they were answering a question that you asked.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. Awesome. Okay. Well then, Anna,
Yes.
I'm going to stop sharing. Would you be willing to share?
Absolutely. And this is the one with the person whose back we're seeing and sitting down?
Yes, I think that's right.
Okay.
It's a like video 2. We'll see. Yeah.
Yep, I got it.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so let's share.
So this will be a video of kind of refocusing back on the importance of self-care, because that's what we'll spend the rest of the presentation talking about, is some more kind of practical self-care things. Hopefully I've made the case that self-care practices and your well-being is important, especially as it relates to your role of co-regulation partner for the children in your care. Yes, Anna, you got it.
Self-care is really about doing what you need to do to take care of yourself physically.
No, you could put a little bit louder, maybe.
So it's not something that is frivolous. It's actually essential for us to protect our well-being.
Taking care of self is critical. This is hard work, really hard work. And so acknowledge it and give yourself the opportunity to take a breath before you get to doing.
We do this work because we care. It's very normal to be affected. It's very normal too to just, maybe your sleep gets disturbed. Maybe you start doing self-care, but of a different kind of self-care, like you're having that extra milkshake or that extra glass of wine. People don't pay attention that what they're trying to do is regulate themselves.
If we want to be healthy enough to do our jobs, then it's important for us to develop a routine of healthy habits that we engage in regularly, both at home and at work.
What I've started asking professionals to think about is write out a plan of care for yourself and commit whatever that means in your personal life, if that means meditating 10 minutes a day, if that means yoga, if that means running.
I think just, finding something that feels good to you and trying to do that a few times a week. I would say every day if you could, and it could be something as simple as, reading. If that's what you like to do, then make sure you carve that half hour or an hour a day to give to yourself. If it's working out, then that's what you do. If it's taking a walk, if it's playing with your pets, with your kids, with whatever it is that you really truly enjoy, and then trying to be present.
I found that those coloring pages are a great way for people like me with a very active brain, thinking about everything we got to do. That's a nice way, put on some nice music and just take 10 minutes and do some coloring. That is a nice way to just sort of step back and kind of quiet your brain a little bit.
The body scan is a tremendous thing. Scanning every part of your body from your toes to your head and relaxing everything, you know. And then when you're done, you know, you realize that when you do it, the more you do it, the more you can focus and be in the present moment. Because, you know, our minds are just scattered to here, there, everywhere. The thought of taking that mindful minute and clearing your mind before you start work could be helpful, to just clear your mind and sit quietly and just be for a moment before you have to do the doing that's necessary for you to, you know, support these families.
You really have to think about, what am I doing on a daily basis while I'm at work to take care of myself? What kinds of supports am I seeking out to ensure that I can be effective in my job? Who am I finding that I can talk to process the stress that I face, so that I can continue to do what I need to do to be there for children and for families?
I think it's critical to really try to find safe space where you can process your experience and talk about it and talk about the feelings, because there's a lot of feelings involved in this work.
Talk about that honestly and frankly, about when this child does this behavior, this is what happens to me. And describe the symptoms, describe what it feels like to get escalated, and get aware of that.
It's that parallel process that we talk about. If we want to provide the best social emotional support for children, then we need to be getting that kind of support from someone as well. It's equally important for the supervisor to have someone to talk with.
We've heard of sites actually, before a meeting begins, they stop and they take a pause and they take a mindful minute before they even start their meetings, which is really great in terms of just allowing for people to take inventory of where they are before they start the work that they have to do for the day. It's really important.
I also think it's important to take time off, to be aware of how much vacation time do I have? Do I have personal time? Is there a mental health day possible? And I think organizations need to be able to recognize in their staff when they're pushed to their limits.
If you need a day off, a mental health day, just take it, you know. It's okay. It's okay. If you need it, you need it.
If we don't take care of ourselves, we're not going to we're going to burn out and not be able to take care of each other. So it's really critical that we advocate for ourselves and for our needs. If we don't prioritize our own physical health, our own mental health, then we can't bring our best selves to work. And that's what we owe our families and the children that we work with. We need to make sure that we are providing the best support we can, and we can only do that when we're healthy.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much. I'm glad we got to see that video together. I think it kind of sums up nicely all the things that we've been talking about. I saw some people reacting with little heart emojis and things like that. So I think this resonates with you all. Okay. So we're going to spend the next chunk of our time, the time that we have left, just talking about what are concrete things that we could do to promote our well-being. Some of those things may have been mentioned already today. So I love this idea that we're all thinking similarly about these things. It makes me feel like we're aligned in the types of things that we're thinking and promoting. What I'm going to focus on are habits that we could develop, of things that we can control, right? So there's so many things that are out of our control. So what are concrete things that are in our control and that are kind of what I like to call the first line of defense, right? Before we get too far off and doing all of these other things, like what is the front line of defense, things that we should be doing and we could be thinking about and changing that are just very basic things. And that's what we'll talk about next. So the first thing is eating, right? the type of food that we eat is the fuel that we are putting into our body to run, right? If we think of our body as a car or as an engine, the quality of what I'm feeding this engine to run properly is literally the food that we put into our mouth and the water that we drink or the liquid that we drink. So some tips to make that fuel as effective as it can be is to try to focus on eating a well-balanced meal. So some nutritional experts say eat the rainbow, which means if your plate has lots of different colors, you're probably in good shape, right? So colors, things like, veggies and fruits and things like that, they all have different colors. So they say eat the rainbow, right? Another tip is when you're going grocery shopping, shop the perimeter of the grocery store, right? When we're going so much into the aisles, we may be wondering if we're eating a lot of processed food because what's in the perimeter, right? Like our proteins are in the perimeter, our veggies, our fruits, our eggs, our milk, and things like that. So when you're going to the grocery store, focus your attention on, am I spending a lot of time on the perimeter or am I spending lots and lots of time in the aisles, right? More likely the processed foods will be in the aisle. A friend of mine that's a nutritionist, she says, Alex, I can't tell you what's healthy or what's not healthy, but what I can tell you is if you pick up a box or you pick up something and you could understand, you could read every single ingredient, probably that is healthy and it's okay. When we start reading ingredients and we're like, what is this? I can't even pronounce the name of this. And what is this other word? And what is this other word? And it's all of these words that we don't understand. That may be something to kind of think about. They also now, I wish I would have included it here. I don't know the name of it, but I know they have one that's called Think Dirty, and it's for products like shampoos and soaps and things. But I also know that there's one for food where you could download an app on your phone and actually scan the QR codes of different brands and things like that. And it'll tell you if it's something that has any toxic kind of elements or things like that inside. So that's interesting too. But really pay attention to the types of foods that you're purchasing and things like that. Try to focus on whole foods, right? Veggies, fruits, and things like that. Watch your salt and sugar intake. So not all sugar is created equally, right? Like there's lots and lots of sugar in fruits, but that is sugar that your body knows how to deal with. Whereas some other sugar from like donuts and things like that may give you, and I'm not saying don't eat donuts, like donuts are delicious and I love eating donuts, but don't be surprised if what you ate for breakfast was 3 donuts and you have a headache 2 hours later, right? You're going to have a sugar crash or something like that. So mix that donut with some scrambled eggs, or right? Like mix that sugar with protein, because that's my next point. Increase your protein intake. Protein allows us to feel full for longer, and it gives us energy to be able to do what we need to do during the day. And it prevents us from having those crashes, like that sugar crash or like that headache or that those types of things. It keeps us kind of fueled longer. So focus on the types of protein, even if you're a vegetarian and things like that, there's still protein options. And understand that your nutritional needs, this is something I learned recently, maybe like 2 years ago, and I was like, oh, I didn't know this, that at different ages, at different stages of your life, your nutritional needs change. When you get older, I think it's above 50 or something, you need to eat a lot more protein than you did when you were younger. So at different stages of your life, your nutritional needs actually change. So it's so important to know about all of that and educate yourself on that so that you make sure you're making those adjustments as needed. And then the last thing is stay hydrated. That's something that I always have to remind myself of because we just get so busy here that sometimes I haven't even eaten lunch or sometimes I forget to drink water. And it's something that I'm trying to really work on for myself, but stay hydrated. I included this little link here. Anna, you'll tell me if it goes directly to that link or if I need to unshare and share again, or Pamela. Maybe I don't see any on here. Pamela, could you see that?
Yes, I can see
Okay.
it.
So I will drop this. Let me drop this into the chat. This is a really cool website. It's free and it has just different kind of information on the food groups and different types of, you have resources, how to build your plate so that a plate is like a well-balanced meal. So we have, fruits, veggies, protein, and grains. And then I love this feature because it says life stages. So pregnancy, when I'm little, when I'm a young adult, when I'm an older adult, and this will give me specific information related to nutrition and different life stages. Okay. You could print materials. They have stuff in Spanish and multiple languages. So they have lots and lots of videos and graphics and resources about healthy eating. So that's something I wanted to share with you all. Okay. Martina says that was created for Michelle Obama. Oh, nice. That's great. Robin says we have a game that looks like that at school. It has food cards and a poster that looks like the plate you showed. Nice. Yes. Very cool. So that's interesting because that makes me happy because it makes me know that the word is kind of getting out about the focus. And I know a lot of schools are really focused for their kids as like, let's teach them and let's make sure kids have healthy foods. Well, it's just as important for you to have healthy foods. Sometimes as caregivers, we take care of everyone. Like I find myself with my daughter and like, I'm like feeding everyone and then I haven't eaten. I leave myself for last. And it's like, no, Alex, you also sit down and enjoy a healthy meal for yourself too, right? So sometimes, I need to also fuel myself and take care of myself. So eating, first line of defense. Second, move. I know you guys move all day long with little kids, chasing them around and all of that stuff. So I think that's great. For me, I have to find moments to move because I am in an office sitting in front of a computer a lot of the time. So most of you all don't have that problem. But still finding opportunities to move your body in a way that brings you joy, right? So some people like to dance, some people like to do yoga, some people like to garden. Garden is movement too, right? I'm moving my arms, I'm moving whatever, I'm planting. Some people like to swim, things like that. Some people like to skate or, rollerblade or things like that. So moving, instead of thinking like I have to do exercise, thinking about it as I have to move my body in a way that fills me, that brings me joy and things like that. It's the little moments and the little decisions that count, right? So maybe I'm choosing to take the stairs instead of the elevator. Maybe I'm choosing to take the long way to get somewhere because I have the time. Sometimes in the office here, we try to do like walking meetings and we try to kind of walk around a little bit because like I said, we're here kind of sitting a lot. And I wanted to mention and highlight that walking is the most underrated and powerful way that you could move your body, right? We're just like, oh, we're just walking. No, walking is powerful. It's great. It's awesome. And it's underrated. It doesn't have to look like you're training for a 5K or you're jogging or you're running. You could just take a walk, just take a walk, especially now that the weather's getting a little bit cooler because sometimes it's so hot. And if you are wondering, what do I do when it's so hot? You could walk inside a mall. I mean, you could walk inside somewhere indoors where you're like, I don't want to buy anything, but I want to get my steps in. They have like watches that allow you to track your steps, or you could just do it and not track your steps. Like it just depends on kind of, I'm a person, I don't like to track it. That stresses me out actually. So I just try to be gentle and be compassionate and just try to move my body whenever I remember. Some people have reminders on their phone that at a certain time, they're like, hey, have you stretched today? Have you moved? That's another thing. I saw something on the internet that said, you're not old. It's just that you are not stretching, right? So sometimes we're like, oh, I'm getting old. I'm 30 or 40 and my back hurts. Sometimes it's because we're not incorporating stretching. We should be stretching every day as soon as we get out of bed or before we go on a walk or before we move our body. We should be kind of engaging in stretching. So that's something I would add to this list. The other thing is sleep. So we said eating, we said moving, and now we're saying sleeping. The average adult needs 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. But it's important for you to know how many hours you need to feel well rested, right? That could be different for you. You can need more, you could need less. The sign is, do you feel well rested, right? Pay attention if you snore or if you wake up, even if you slept 10 hours and you wake up feeling unrested. Sometimes people are not well rested, even though they think they're sleeping the amount of hours, and it's because they're not engaging in restful sleep. So while I'm sleeping for the amount of hours I need to, I'm snoring or I'm waking myself up every, couple of hours or every hour, and I'm not really getting the rest that I need to recuperate and restore. Sleep is something so important. It's so important that little babies, infants, when they're born, they sleep upwards of 19 hours in the first month. 19 hours out of 24 hours they spend asleep because their brain is doing such rapid growth and development. And when we're sleeping, what happens is we're consolidating memories and we're also restoring. The brain has a moment to restore, right? And recharge. It's like my cell phone. If I'm using it all day, I need to put it to charge for many hours so that it's ready for me to use the next day. And if I don't put my phone to charge over and over again, at some point it's going to shut down and I'm not going to be able to use it. So that's kind of like our nervous system and our brain. We need to sleep to recuperate and recharge. So understanding, am I getting restful sleep? How many hours of sleep am I getting consistently? And what does that look like when people are not, and this is the truth for kids too. I get a lot of kids that are referred to us, and they're referred to us because of behavior problems, attention problems, learning problems, all of these. And when we do a deeper dive, they're not sleeping well. And when people are chronically under rested, they're going to present with irritability, with difficulty learning, with behavior problems, with difficulty making decisions, with all of these things. And it's not because they have any of these problems organically, it's because an overtired brain is not going to run to the optimal efficiency. So it's so important to focus on what we call a healthy sleep hygiene, right? So creating a soothing sleep routine for yourself, optimizing your sleep environment. People say invest in a mattress. They're so expensive, but you spend a lot of time sleeping, right? How many hours in a week or in a day do you spend on your bed in your mattress? Invest in those. For me, I invested in blackout curtains, right? I like my room very, an optimal sleep environment, and for everyone will be different, is an environment that's very dark, that has appropriate temperature. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, somewhere between 72 degrees. And it all depends. And there's not a lot of noise, right? So I don't live next to train tracks or something, like I'm able to kind of like tune things out. And I feel comfortable in my bed, right? So that's something that you want to do, is optimize your sleep environment. Maybe you want to have certain types of quilts or certain colors that promote soothing. Some sleep experts say if you have insomnia or problems with sleeping, don't put a TV in your bedroom. Only use your bedroom to sleep. If you're having insomnia or difficult sleeping, get up off your bed and go somewhere else and then try again, right? Don't stay in your bed kind of tossing and turning, because the sleep works with sound machine. Yeah. A sound machine could also help kind of block out any noises if you have lots and lots of noises, or if you're living in a house with lots of other people, and things like that. Or you live next to a busy street where there's cars, or next to a hospital and you hear ambulances, or an airport or something like that, that could block out some of those sounds. I'll say this, but we don't do this. Disconnect from electronic devices before bedtime, right? I do this myself. I'm in bed looking at my phone, right? But just know, if you do that in your phone, you could lower the brightness, because what happens is that cell phones and the brightness and the light will kill your melatonin. Melatonin is what we need to feel sleepy. So when we have a bright light in our face, right, these phones are developed, they're like, stay on me, right? Like, keep playing with me, keep looking at me. So this bright light in your face right before going to sleep is going to kind of kill your melatonin. We will tell parents, start to dim the lights in the house about an hour and a half before bed. Start setting the tone, start bringing the energy down, start creating the conditions where we're winding down, where we're getting our minds into a restful state to enter into sleep. So disconnecting from electronic devices, sometimes that's the only time where we could look at our cell phones, is finally at the end of the day, now we're in bed, but try to at least dim that light. Don't have that bright light in your face. It's going to really put you in a difficult position when you're trying to get to sleep. And then limit or avoid caffeine or alcohol or things like that before bed. So that's what I would say about that. And if you feel like you are already trying these so these are, like I said, frontline techniques, but you may feel like, I do snore. There's things that you talk to your primary care physician. They have special people that specialize in insomnia or people that specialize in sleep. I see Gabriela said I have insomnia. So there's support if you need more kind of tailored support. They also in hospitals have what's called sleep studies, right? Where if you snore and things like that, they'll kind of hook you up to a machine and they want to know what's going on in your brain while you're sleeping. Are you getting restful sleep? And some people need to do like a CPAP machine, or some people need to do different things to be able to sleep in a way that is restful for them. So get to know yourself, develop healthy habits, analyze your current habits, and if you need more support, reach out to start. You could start with your primary care physician and share those concerns with them. The next area is connection, the importance of connection. We've been kind of talking about that in the context of co-regulation. So like I said, we're social. And I just want to go back to Danish is saying, I need my TV on, and that's okay, right? Everybody is an expert on themselves. So if some people get really, it doesn't calm the nervous system to have so much quiet. I need something happening in the background, whether that's a sound machine or whether that's the TV or I need kind of something happening, and that's okay too. If that's what your system needs, then that's what your system needs. So get to know yourself. And that's why I don't want to give like any targeted, like hard rules. It's more about get to know yourself and get to know what makes you feel like you could get into a space of restful sleep. So the next one, connect with your colleagues, your work family, your real family, your friends, your community, nature, your religion or spirituality, whatever form, whatever fills your cup. This is a way of filling our cup with healthy foods, filling our cup with restful sleep, filling our cup with moving our bodies, and then filling our cup with healthy relationships and connections that help us to feel safe and okay. So make sure that you're prioritizing time to check in with each other, to stay connected, right? In a world that really is so fast paced, and sometimes we don't feel like we have the opportunity to slow down and to connect with others. The next thing is also kind of could be related to relationships sometimes, but we're talking about boundaries, setting boundaries. Being okay, practicing saying no and practicing being okay saying no, right? Sometimes we feel like we have to take more and more on. Sometimes caregivers feel this way, right? Like women sometimes feel like this. People that are in caregiving roles will feel like this. Like we just need to take more and more on. We need to be everything for everyone. We can never say no. And it's okay to say no. It's okay to be okay with saying no. Protect your time to do the little things like taking bathroom breaks or eating lunch, and prioritize that. Like the video said, take days off, take mental wellness days, use your PTO, take your time to do what you need to do, because it's better for your company if you take one day as a preventative than if you need to either quit or take months later because now you're in a state of burnout, right? So it's better to do preventative things than reactive things after the fact. So one of the metaphors one of the stories or metaphors that I like to talk about in thinking about self-care and taking breaks is this idea of, if I'm going to cut a tree, let's say my task is I'm going to use a machete to cut a tree, right? That's what I came to do. And I get to the tree and I realize that my machete is not sharp, right? The edge is not sharp, it's dull. So I have a choice. I could start hacking at the tree with my dull machete. It's going to take a lot of more time. It's going to take a lot of my energy. I may not get very far and I'm going to get exhausted and feel pretty bad about myself. I didn't get a lot done. I didn't do what I came to do. Or I could actually maybe take the first half an hour or the first hour. I don't get started right away. Maybe I need to take the first hour or two to sit down and to sharpen my machete. And I just need to sharpen and sharpen and sharpen and sharpen and take all the time that I need to sharpen that machete. And then when I'm ready, now I'm here to do what I came to do. Now with a couple of hacks at the tree, I'm able to cut the tree down and I did what I came to do, right? So sometimes what could be perceived as taking a step back, right? Like I wanted to get there and go immediately. No, sometimes we do. We need to take that day to rest. We need to take that time to focus on our well-being so that then we could take a leap forward. Okay. So setting boundaries is a good thing. And it's something that sometimes women and or caregivers have a hard time doing because so many people expect so much from us. Okay. The other boundary that's important is boundaries on relationships that are emotionally draining, right? Maybe you have a coworker that all they do is they find you to kind of talk negatively about a parent or about a child, and you kind of feel like you don't want to be mean to them, or, you know, they're your friends and things like that. But every time, the sign of a healthy relationship is at the end of this relationship, I feel energized. I feel good. But if any time I'm talking to someone, I consistently feel drained, I'm like, oh no, then that's maybe a relationship that I need to set a limit on. You know, maybe I could say, look, I really want to talk to you, Stacy, but today I have 5 minutes and I have a hard stop at 10:10 because I have to transition to something else that I'm doing. I'm so sorry. Right. So I have 5 minutes for you to kind of talk about this. Or you could say, oh, is this urgent? Because I don't have time right now to talk about this. I'm so sorry. Right. And that's okay. It's okay to set limits on emotionally draining relationships. And it's really important to do that. The other thing, you guys, I think practiced this already today, is breathe, right? Don't underestimate the power of breathing. When we breathe deeply, so let me backtrack. So there's 2 ways of breathing. There's a way of breathing deeply into our diaphragm. So in our bellies, in your belly, you have a balloon, what kind of looks like a balloon. And we're seeing that in this picture, kind of expanding and contracting. And that is called the diaphragm, right? And when we breathe into our belly, when we breathe into our diaphragm, diaphragmatic breathing or belly breathing, as we call it, it is a powerful anti-stress technique. Okay. When breathing is something to become aware of because it's something so automatic that we are doing it constantly without paying attention to it. So just by paying attention to your breathing, that could be really, really powerful because again, it's something automatic. If we've been living in constant stress, because when we're stressed, we breathe differently. We don't breathe into our bellies, we breathe into our chest. We have shallow breathing and we go, and we're not letting it go all the way down to the belly. We're kind of keeping it here in the chest. And there's a reason for that, because tying it back to the stress response, if I need to run really quickly, that's how I'm able to do that. Right? Like that gives me the energy that I need to do all my fight, flight, freeze, survival stuff. But again, if we're not in survival mode, if things are just annoying or stressful, but we're safe and okay, my body might start to breathe that way. And I could show my body that things are safe by telling it, hey, body, I'm safe and okay. And by breathing differently. Because if I pay attention on purpose to how I'm breathing and see my breathing in my chest and say, what would it be like to breathe down deep into my belly? What does that feel like? And I'm able to do that. Then that gives my body's like, hey, wait, I thought we were unsafe. Oh, well, if we're breathing like this, then I guess we're not unsafe. Oh, I guess we're safe. And things start to come back to normal, right? We talked about different ways to teach kids how to breathe. We need to know how to breathe too. And for kids, right, don't tell me, show me. How powerful is it for a teacher to say to a student, oof, my lid is flipped right now. I need to take some deep breathing. I need to take some belly breaths right now. And for kids to see you model that in real time is powerful. Sometimes for kids, we'll do something called breathing buddies that we'll have them lay on the floor and we'll have them pick their favorite stuffed animal to put on their bellies. And then they could kind of breathe with their breathing buddy. And as they breathe in and out, they could pay attention on purpose to if they're breathing with their bellies by watching if their breathing buddy kind of comes up and down. So there's different things that we could do with the class. But for you, you could put a hand on your heart and a hand on your belly and just breathe and just pay attention to what rises. Is it your chest? Is it your belly? And if it's your belly breathing, if it's your chest, maybe with curiosity, wonder, what would it be like to have my in-breath go in down into my belly to cover all the kind of crevices and corners of my belly to really fill my body with oxygen, because it is a powerful anti-stress technique. When you breathe into your belly, it slows down your heart rate, it decreases your blood pressure, it relaxes your muscle, it calms your mind, it decreases your anxiety. It brings your body back to calm. Okay, so breathing, highly underrated, something that we all do all the time. We're already doing it. So pay attention and get to know your breathing and get to know how you breathe. Just pay attention to it. The other thing I'll say is check in with yourself, right? So they mentioned in the video a body scan activity. A body scan activity is an activity in which you start from the tippity top of your head and you go all the way to the bottom of your big toe, and you just mentally kind of scan by paying attention on purpose to your body and noticing on purpose, are there any sections in my body that I need to adjust or change? Like sometimes I find that I'm clenching my jaw, so releasing that. Sometimes I'm clenching, kind of, I have my shoulders tense, or I'm clutching my fist, and there are things that I don't notice, I'm not even paying attention to. So with simple awareness, we're able to kind of make those adjustments to see kind of what I need to do to feel more calm or more regulated. I could also pay attention on purpose to what's happening inside my body. Am I thirsty? And do I need to use the restroom? Am I hungry? What does my body need right now to be okay? Okay. I could also check in with my thoughts and my emotions by, I know you guys did some mindfulness earlier, but using mindfulness techniques. And that's a whole presentation in and of itself, but something like, so understanding, first of all, that we are not our thoughts and we are not our emotions. We have thoughts and we have emotions, right? They come to visit, they come, they leave, and things like that. And we don't have to be attached to every single thought or emotion we have. We could just notice with curiosity, right? So if I have, so creating space between you and your thoughts could look like something like this. Let's say a child says something, and I think, wow, he's so spoiled. Let's say that's the automatic thought that I have in my head, right? Wow, what a spoiled brat. Creating space would say, I just had the thought, what a spoiled brat. So that gives me some space, right? Because now I could decide, what do I want to do with that thought? Do I want to keep it? Do I want to act on it? Do I want to just let it pass? It's not, we could create some space between us and our thoughts by saying, right? By observing it with curiosity. I just had the thought that nothing is ever going to get better, or that nothing will help. Is that, I wonder if that's helpful. I wonder why I'm feeling like that. You know, now we have space for exploration instead of thinking that every single thought we have to act on or is playing out our reality. Jacqueline says, sometimes it's hard to say no or mark your personal space because people take it wrong. How can I handle it? Any tips? Yeah. So I would need a little bit more information, but I think, Jacqueline, speaking your truth, stating what you need and what you want, right? So I need to have protected time for myself because that's what I know I need to fuel myself, or I know what I need. This is my experience. You know, I think if people take that the wrong way, it's their personal problem, because I'm talking about my experience and what I need to be safe and okay. And I hope you'll understand. And if you don't, then that's information about that other person, you know? So I think my tip would be using I statements, talking about your experience. This is what I need. This is what I want. And this is what I will do to make sure that what I need or what I want happens. So again, so Stacy, I want to hear about what you're saying, but I only have 5 minutes because I told myself that I was going to take a protected lunch every single day. And I'm listening to this audiobook during that time. And that's something that I want to do for myself and that I've promised myself I will do. And I will do that today. So again, I have 5 minutes. I'm happy to be all ears, but at 10:10, I will have to transition to my lunch. It's about me. It's not about you, Stacy. It's about me and what I'm doing in my wellness journey. Something like that, right? Like focusing on you and your experience. If people cannot take away your experience. If they do, then that's information about them. And then you could make other decisions about what information that tells you about that person or about your relationship. I hope that helps. And yeah, and then checking in with your behavior. So, I screamed. Okay. being curious and compassionate and showing yourself grace. Okay. When this happens, I did this. Interesting. I wonder what was going on for me in that moment. Or I wonder, again, it's really having curiosity, it's having compassion, and it's trying to really understand yourself. Because oftentimes we're just kind of doing, reacting, doing. And we don't often pause to create space to be like, why or what? How did those things connect, right? So check in with yourself throughout your day. Give yourself grace. It's not helpful to be like, oh my gosh, I screamed, I'm a monster, I'm terrible, right? Because now we're engaging in like a repetitive kind of judgment and a cycle of stress in and of ourselves. So let's not judge. Let's just be curious and have grace and compassion. Like, okay, that happened. Interesting. Okay. Right. So just creating that space. And then lastly, recognize if you need more help, either from your family, from your community, like a church organization or other community, or a mental health professional. Recognize if even doing all of these things, you're still really suffering or struggling. You may need more help, and there's nothing wrong with that. Help is available, and with help, you will be well. And when you are well, you can show up for yourself and for the others that count on you so very dearly, including the children in your care. So taking steps for your well-being is crucial. It's not selfish. I know the other presenters highlighted that too. I want to highlight that as well. Taking care of yourself allows you to take care of others. And that's what you guys are doing. So I want to end with telling you guys are appreciated, you're precious, you're equipped, you're capable, you're strong, you're valued, you are needed, you are smart, and you are loved. I thank you so much for being here today.
Alex, I want to thank you because for every single one of us, this has been so beneficial.